Welcome to Mor-In The Know podcast. I am your host, Josh Morin, Vice President and co-founder of Field Supplements, as well as sobriety, woke business, and wellness coach. Mor-In The Know delivers an array of content based on marketing, health and fitness, personal branding, addiction, and often goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy and the truth. If you seek to better understand the inner workings of human performance, consciousness, business, and humanity, you've come to the right place. Thank you for tuning in and taking along. Let's get today's podcast started. What is up? What's happening? All Mor-In The Know listeners. Special edition, because today marks the first of my 30 for 30 podcasts. For the next 30 days, I will be doing a podcast. Instead of the typical 1 hour podcast every single morning, I will be doing around a 10 to 20 minute podcast for everyone tuning in. So I'm really looking forward to developing my skills over the next 30 days and getting a lot of content out. So if you guys would, as always, please share with your friends and family. I love it when I'm seeing everyone tuning in, taking photos, doing some screen recordings, and sharing with your friends and family. It means a lot. Today's podcast is sponsored by my sister at sunshine_sparkle-faced. I love the name. She just came up with the Mor-In The Know logo that you see now posted as the cover photo, as well as on my website. Shout out to my sister. If you're looking for any sort of graphic design, she has done all of the branding, all of the marketing, top to bottom, the logo design and everything for every single company that I have been part of and that I've created over the last few years. So really awesome to be able to work with my sister. She's an artist, and her company, Sunshine Sparkle Faced, is an accumulation of my family. It's my sister, my brother-in-law, my mom, my grandma, and a few others that have come together and have developed this company where it's just like a conglomeration of artists. So it's really awesome to see my sister growing and really developing into her brand. So if you are looking for some freelance work, she also does logo design, graphic design. So please reach out to her at sunshine_sparkle-faced, one of the most incredible human beings, one of the most selfless people, and easy to work with people that I've ever been able to collaborate with over the last few years. So that really opens up today's podcast. So shout out to my sister for getting Mor-In The Know on the map with an incredible professional logo. Be sure to check her out. Next up on the list is, obviously, I'm starting this 30 for 30, so I'm going to keep these short, sweet, and to the point. Today is the very first time that I have videoed my podcast. I kept telling myself that I was going to take 6 months, a year, maybe a little bit more to start videoing the podcast, simply due to the fact that for the first handful of them, I found myself messing up, there being long pauses, saying some things, going off on rants. But I truly feel that the only way to develop the skills necessary to be a good podcaster is just to throw yourself in the deep end. I've always been somebody who has been baptized by fire, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm throwing myself into the deep end, seeing if I can swim, and rolling with the punches at any sort of other cliche sayings that I could put out there that pretty much is saying that I need to step up to the plate, commit, and start to develop those skills if I really want to be somebody who is a podcaster and on podcasts. So I really appreciate you guys joining in this podcast in the early manifestation of this Mor-In The Know section or portion of my brand. Obviously, you guys have seen me starting to develop my personal brand, Mor-In The Know Incorporated, which includes coaching, podcasts, my blog, and as well as various other things that are very important to me and things that I can provide of value to you as people. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in, tagging along, as well as sharing that content, indulging in that content, and or hiring me as your success coach. I just got accredited by Jeffrey Combs Golden Masterminds accredited coaching program, where Jeff has assisted over 12,000 clients with 60,000 coaching hours be able to understand why they do what they do, get to the root of the cause, to the effect of the events that have shaped their feelings, begin to let go, and to begin the process of change. And that's where I am right now, is in the process and transformation of change. And I appreciate you guys entrusting me on your journey for those who decide to coach with me. What I wanted to talk about today in today's short segment of the first of 30, Mor-In The Know, 30 for 30s, is communication. I just did a blog today, so if you want to check out the website, morintheknow.org, that's MORIN, my last name, the THE, no, KNOW.org, you can check out the latest blog that I posted. So I'm really just going to touch on a few items that I wasn't able to really elaborate in detail in the blog that I wrote today, as well as speak about things. So sometimes when I talk about something and sometimes when I write about something, the message can be completely different. So I made a blog today that we are living in a connected, disconnected generation. At our fingertips, we have the ability to connect to people all around the world, meaning instant messenger, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, these social media platforms that give us this instant communication, this instant gratification, and ability to share content effortlessly at our fingertips. Essentially, there's no time variable. So, I mean, it's instant. It's right on the money, right on the fingertips. And what I'm beginning to see is that the ease of this communication flow and the connectivity also creates some disconnectivity with communication. You look back on when we first started using our phones, and even before phones became really a big thing. I remember being a kid having to literally go over to my neighbor's house and knock on their door to see if their child, my friend down the street, was able to come outside and play. Nowadays, you don't see that. Nowadays, what you see is you see kids texting each other, young kids texting each other, and if they can't play, or if most kids aren't going outside to play nowadays, which is really sad, because I truly feel that I was part of the last generation of children that lived a childhood. Now I believe that we're living through screens, and not to say that that's bad. I'm simply saying that it's just a change of times. There has been created feedback loops through our social media platforms, and I am a firsthand addict of social media, a firsthand addict of these platforms. I spend about 6 to 8 hours a day on these platforms, consuming as well as delivering content. And what I've been able to see over this last 7, 8 years of me being part of this is that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And majority of young kids don't really understand what is going on to them, as well as the majority of people don't understand what's going on to them when you are consuming information in these platforms. These platforms have been set up to create these feedback loops of dopamine releases. So essentially what's happening is when you're on social media, when you're on Snapchat, when you're on these platforms, what they have done and what they have developed is ways to be able to find, they have been able to find ways to release dopamine in the brain. So they're creating an experience that releases dopamine in the brain. Dopamine essentially is the feel good that, oh, this feels right type of emotion, that type of feeling. When we release dopamine in the brain, it's just very similar to what happens when you are doing drugs. When you're doing any sort of drugs that releases dopamine in the brain, you're going to feel this feel good, right? Well, when you're on social media platforms and you have that feel good feeling, what's going to happen? You're going to want to stay on the platform. So they've developed this feedback loop of dopamine release to keep you coming back, as well as to keep you plugged in and keep you connected. Well, what's great about all of this is yes, at our fingertips, we have the ability to connect to people, billions of people around the world effortlessly, all on these social media platforms. But at the same time, we have lost our connectivity. And I truly believe that right now, that is the biggest thing that we all want, is we all want to feel connected. We all want to feel loved. But how can you feel loved when you feel so disconnected, even though you live in a connected world? And that's where I feel and have found myself, especially the last few years, beginning to understand the dichotomy of life. I went off to Hawaii and I lived in the mountains, and I was essentially trying to separate myself from the rat race, essentially separate myself from living in my phone, from being part of this money game that's really a facade. And I didn't want to be part of society. I just simply wanted to live in the mountains for the rest of my life. And that's great and that's dandy and all, but I also believe that there's a purpose to be served here. And I also believe that I have a mission to be served now, that I've been able to experience that dichotomy of life, the other side of things, where, you know what, yes, I do believe that I can have a balance in my life with going into the mountains and living off the grid and experiencing a stress-free, disconnected life where I get reconnected to myself and rooted back to my true self. I believe I can have that balance, But I also believe where I'm at in my life is that I love podcasting. I love the work that I do. You can see sitting behind me, I have a supplement company. Shout out to Field Supplements. You guys already know what that is if you are tuning in. But I love what I do. Every single day I wake up, for the next 30 days, I'm starting to develop a new habit where I wake up at 6 in the morning, and I'm going to be doing a blog and podcast every single day for the next 30 days. And really forcing myself out of my comfort zone, really allowing myself to step into my creativity to really connect to source. And what I'm saying is that although I have seen the other side where I've put my phone down for weeks at a time, been connected for weeks at a time, and I also have seen where I have been glued to my phone and social media and these social media platforms for days on end, is I believe that there's a balance. But I also am seeing that there is a major disconnect during this time. During this connectivity, there's major disconnectivity. And I truly believe is because of the ease of communication. Snapchat, direct messenger, text messaging, all these platforms have made it easier for us to communicate instantly. But I also believe that it has also decreased our commitment as people to commit to communicating on a personal level, to communicating in person, or finding ways to develop clear lines of communication. And that's what today's short segment podcast is going to be about, is communication. I truly believe communication is the root of all success, whether it be romantic, platonic, business relationships, coaching, mentoring, you name it. Communication lies at the very root of all success. The better the line of communication, the more objective you can be, the more vulnerable and able that you are to be able to easily and effortlessly express yourself, what you mean, not just what you say, but what you mean. You're going to have successful relationships. You're going to have success in most of these areas. Divorce, disagreements, breakups, all conflicts or all disagreements or all things that are quote unquote bad amongst people can typically be traced back to a lack of communication. And how can that be when we have such how can that be when we have such a connected society right now? At our fingertips, we have our phones. We can text anyone. We have Snapchat. We have Instagram, direct messaging, instant messaging. How can that be when we have these at our disposal? Well, I can tell you, these resources have made us lazy. These resources has made it really easy for us to be connected, but it's taken away the commitment that it takes to build these relationships. I'll be the first one to say I Snapchat 100 times more than I text message. I should probably call people more, and I've been doing that lately. Is instead of texting people, instead of Snapchatting them, instead of messaging them on Instagram, happy birthday or congratulations, I'm picking up the phone and I'm doing a video call. I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling. And if you can do that and simply change a few of the interactions that you have, and it doesn't have to be all the time. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call somebody for a 1 or 2 minute phone conversation instead of texting back and forth, do that. And if you have the ability to meet with somebody for a small meeting, maybe over coffee or lunch or whatever it is, take the time out of your day to create and develop that relationships. I have found that most misunderstandings come down to communication. And that's really what a misunderstanding is understanding where the other side is. And I feel that when you are face to face and or through the phone, if that's the only way that you can communicate because you're not in the same demographic, in the same area, that's the only way to recreate this connectivity. But the easiest way to really continue the problem over and over again and create this disconnect is, and will forever be, to not be committed to change. And right now, more than ever, we must commit to change. We must commit to developing a better communication style, create this connectivity. We, the people, have the power, so might as well step up, create these habits, begin to understand, hey, we have this ability to be able to connect to each other very instantly, to be connected to each other fast, effortlessly. Why not use that to our advantage instead of creating more dis-ease and disadvantage in our lives? So that's a little bit about communication, and I'm sure that there's many girlfriends as well as failed relationships with friends and family that can attest and have plenty of documented cases where, if you've ever texted somebody and the tone was completely lost, or you definitely said something that you said something in the text or in the message that you really didn't mean, or it came off the wrong way, got misinterpreted, and really probably caused some sort of drama or chaos. And that's what I truly believe can be prevented with proper communication, getting back to our roots of having to knock on the doors of our neighbors and friends to see if they want to come outside and play, instead of texting them, instead of messaging them, instead of Snapchatting them, is being able to do these things where we get back to our roots. I mean, I'm not saying go back to the Stone Ages of a pigeon and note here, but I am saying is that if we get back to a little bit of our roots of the knocking on your neighbor's door era, this generation can turn from the disconnected to the connected, and we can be the change. So thank you for tuning in and taking along. Shout out to my sister once again at sunshine_sparkleface for sponsoring this podcast, as well as every of our podcasts with Mor-In The Know as the name, as well as the beautiful logo that she has created. If you have yet to, you can see behind me, I got a wall of supplements, and I got many more. We got some incredible formulations, the highest quality products and raw ingredients on the entire market, with top-of-the-line and state-of-the-art manufacturing practices, as well as the guru at the head of it all, my pops, Wayne Morin, has been in the industry for 30-plus years, and I am incredibly grateful to not only be his son, but to be his business partner. Check out Fueled Supplements on Instagram at fueledsupplements.com. And if you don't already follow me on Instagram, check out mogul_Morin to stay in the know. And you guys have a beautiful Tuesday.